Let me tell y'all a story that starts with sweet potato pie, gospel music, and laughter, and ends with silence so loud it shook an entire neighborhood. This ain't just a story about a family. This is about legacy, about what happens when the world thinks you don't matter. But this time, the world was wrong. It was Thanksgiving Day. The Millers were setting the table for what would be their last dinner. Or so folks thought. Big Mama Ruth had the cornbread in the oven. Uncle Curtis was already tipsy talking about the cowboys, and little Zari was upstairs trying on her princess dress for dessert photos. From the outside, it looked like any other family gathering, but behind them smiles was something dark, something watching. You see, the Millers had lived in that house for generations, passed down, paid off, protected, but they also had land. And in a world where profit matters more than people, that land was worth more than their lives to the wrong man. And that man was Harold Kane. Harold ran the local real estate board, sat on the city zoning commission, and had a nasty habit of turning black neighborhoods into luxury condos. He'd been circling the Millers' property for 2 years, first with sweet talk, then with threats. But Ruth wasn't for sale. She told him flat out, "This land been baptized in sweat, prayer, and funeral tears. You want it? You better dig me up first." So when Thanksgiving came, and the Millers suddenly stopped answering their phones, stopped posting on social media, and the house went dark, folks noticed. First, it was just whispers. "Y'all heard from Aunt Ruth? Why the porch light's still off?" But by Saturday morning, neighbors were banging on the door. No answer. The front door locked. The turkey leftovers still in the trash. But no Miller in sight. Police filed a missing persons report. Said there was no sign of forced entry. Just one thing out of place. A half-burnt photo on the living room floor. It was the whole family, smiling. But Harold Kane's face had been scratched out with a knife. Now here's where it gets strange. Sunday morning, a news van shows up. Not local news. National, saying they got a tip about a missing family with land linked to $1 million development. People started side-eyeing the mayor, the sheriff, even Harold himself. But Harold smiled for the cameras, said, "I'm just as shocked and saddened as anyone else. We'll do everything to bring them home." What he didn't know? Somebody was watching him, too. Back in the sheriff's office, a young intern named Malik Johnson had been quietly watching everything unfold. 22 years old, fresh out of community college, assigned to filing paperwork and making coffee. They underestimated him, they always did. But Malik was sharp, real sharp. And something about this case smelled off. Malik remembered hearing Harold's name too many times, so he started digging, quietly. He pulled phone logs, surveillance footage, even hacked into a deleted city email backup. What he found? Harold Kane had been on that block the night of Thanksgiving. He didn't knock. He didn't visit. He parked 3 houses down, stayed 23 minutes, left before midnight. Malik took that to his supervisor, but the moment he showed the footage, they shut him down, told him to drop it, said he was reading too much into nothing. But Malik didn't stop. He couldn't. Something in his gut told him. They knew, and he was right. That night, his badge access was revoked. His files wiped. He got a courtesy call from a private number warning him to let the dead bury the dead. But Malik, he grew up on the same street as Big Mama Ruth. She taught him how to read before kindergarten. She gave his mama cornbread when they couldn't afford dinner. This wasn't just a case. This was personal. So Malik did what they never expected. He went public. He leaked the footage anonymously, sent it to an independent journalist, posted screenshots to Reddit, shared voicemail threats, and it blew up. Where Are the Millers started trending. Thousands of people flooded Kane's company with bad reviews. News vans returned, this time for blood. Then came the twist nobody expected. 1 week later, a live stream appeared on Facebook. The title, "We're Alive." There they were, Big Mama Ruth, Zari, Uncle Curtis, all of them, sitting in a dimly lit cabin. Ruth looked into the camera, her eyes fierce, and she said, "We didn't disappear. We escaped." Turns out Harold had sent private men to scare them off. But when they showed up with zip ties and threats, Ruth was ready. The family had been preparing. Malik's early warning had tipped off Zari's cousin, who was an ex-Marine. The Millers fought back, escaped through the backwoods, hid out while they built their case, and the best part? They'd recorded everything. The threats, the attempted break-in, the property offer forged with a fake signature. It was all on tape. Now the tables were turned. Harold Kane was arrested for conspiracy, intimidation, and fraud. The sheriff resigned in disgrace. And Malik? Malik got a full scholarship. 4 different departments offered him jobs. And Big Mama Ruth? She handed him the deed to a second plot of land and said, "Make it a community center, baby. You earned it." But just when it felt like justice had been served, the screen glitched, the live stream cut out. 10 minutes later, a second video uploaded to the Millers' page. No voices, just a drone shot of their cabin, surrounded by 6 black SUVs, and then silence. Last we saw the Millers, they were alive and free, exposing the system, exposing Harold Kane, and showing the world what happens when you refuse to be erased. But justice don't come without a cost. And peace? Peace don't come easy when you've embarrassed the powerful on camera in front of millions, because 10 minutes after that live stream went viral, the cabin went dark. No warning, no power outage, just black. And then the SUVs came. 6 black Suburbans. No plates, no sirens, just quiet engines and men in tactical gear moving like shadows. No knocks, no announcements. Just the crunch of boots on dry leaves and the smell of smoke in the air. Zari saw them first. Her little voice barely a whisper. "Grandma, the men from the woods are back." Big Mama Ruth didn't flinch. She looked down at her hands. They were steady. She'd seen this before. Not these men, not this tech, but this spirit. The spirit that shows up when black voices get too loud, when truth gets too dangerous. But Ruth didn't run. Instead, she turned to Malik, who had arrived just hours earlier to help escort the family back into town. She handed him a flash drive, told him, "If they take us, let them. But you get this to the people." And then she smiled. The kind of smile only someone who survived too much can wear. "We didn't fight this long just to disappear again." The door burst open, guns drawn, faces hidden. One man barked, "On the ground!" Now. But Ruth just stood there, head high, and said calmly, "This land is still ours. You'll have to bury me on it." They grabbed her, grabbed Curtis, grabbed Zari, threw Malik against the wall. But what they didn't know was that the whole thing was being streamed live again. See, Malik had set up a backup stream, hidden GoPros, motion triggers, cloud upload. So while they dragged the Millers out of that cabin, millions of people were watching, again. And this time there were no edits, no cuts, just the cold truth on full display. The bags over their heads, the bruises, the threats, the whole operation exposed in real time. And the internet lost its mind. Within an hour, the DOJ issued a formal investigation. State police were pulled off the case. Journalists camped outside City Hall. Protesters flooded the streets with signs that read, "Where are the Millers? Again?" But the Millers were gone, vanished like ghosts, like they'd never existed. Until a week later, when Malik received a single text message. No number, just a grainy photo. It was Zari, holding up 3 fingers, standing in front of a red brick wall with ivy and a metal door. Malik recognized it instantly. The abandoned juvenile center off Highway 16, shut down years ago after reports of abuse, rumored to be privately owned now, and off the books. Nobody in, nobody out. Not unless you had the right badge or the right money. Malik didn't call the police. He knew better. He went to the one person who owed the Millers everything, Detective Renee Carter, one of the few black women on the force, the same woman who had once ignored Malik's warnings and lost sleep every night since. She looked at the photo, then at Malik, and said, "You've got 10 minutes. Then I call in backup. Don't die before I get there." So they drove. And what they found wasn't just a kidnapping. It was a facility. Surveillance rooms, holding cells, stacks of files with names crossed out in red ink, all connected to a secret program run by Kane's corporate partners, the kind that relocates problematic families when land deals get too messy. The Millers were in the basement, hooked up to IVs, monitored like lab rats, but still alive. Ruth opened her eyes when she heard Malik's voice, whispered, "Took you long enough, baby." They got them out, all of them. And this time, there was a full investigation. FBI raids, arrests, asset seizures. Kane's empire collapsed overnight. Turns out he wasn't just stealing land, he was trafficking silence. Families across the country, gone, but not forgotten anymore. The Millers were placed in witness protection. Malik turned the flash drive into a docu-series. Renee testified in court and flipped on 3 politicians. And the land? It stayed with the Millers. But don't think the story ends there. Because late one night, months after the trial, Malik got another text. No words, just a single image, a drone photo of his mother's house, circled in red, and underneath it, a note: "You should have stayed quiet." Last time, we saw Malik crack the truth wide open. He saved the Millers, exposed the underground facility, took down Kane, shined a light on a system that had swallowed families whole and sold their silence like property deeds. But the thing about monsters, they don't die in headlines. They hide. And on a rainy Tuesday night, Malik Johnson learned just how deep this thing really went. He was sitting on his mama's couch, same house he grew up in, same sofa with the duct tape on the armrest. She was asleep in her room, gospel playing low on the speaker. Just peace, for once. Until that text, that drone photo. His mother's house circled in red, and one sentence that knocked the air from his lungs. "You should have stayed quiet." He stared at it, heart frozen. Then he noticed something. A reflection in the window of the photo. A watermark. Faint. Government issue. Not public drone footage. Surveillance. Which meant this wasn't some internet troll. They were inside again. He jumped up, checked the locks, pulled his mom out of bed. No explanation, just told her to grab a bag and move. By the time he got to the driveway, there was a black car parked down the street. Lights off, engine running, watching. Malik didn't flinch, not this time. He was done running. Next morning, Malik filed a report with Federal Protection Services. But here's where it gets dark. The file? Gone. His DOJ contact? Transferred. No record. The USB drive he gave them with all the Millers' evidence? Wiped from their servers. He showed up in person. And the woman at the front desk looked him dead in the face and said, "We don't know who you are, sir." That's when it hit him. He hadn't just uncovered corruption. He'd stepped on the neck of a machine. One that didn't just operate in the dark. It erased the light. Malik needed help. Real help. So he did the one thing they didn't expect. He went underground. Linked up with a man named Theo Briggs. Ex-intelligence. Whistleblower. Lived off-grid now. He'd seen programs like this before. Said it started after Katrina, when the government realized relocation could be profitable, if no one came back. Theo watched the drone footage Malik saved, studied the metadata, said, "This isn't Kane's operation anymore, this goes way higher." He pointed to a hidden GPS tag in the photo, said, "They're using old CIA black sites, one of them still active, about 30 miles outside Baton Rouge." That's when Malik made his decision. He wasn't just going to survive this time, he was going to break it. So he called Renee Carter, told her, "I need a badge and I need a name." She didn't ask questions. She just said, "Text me the address. I'll bring the car." By nightfall, they were driving past the bayou. No GPS, just a printed map and a code Theo deciphered from the drone logs. The road turned to gravel, then to mud, then to a clearing. That's when they saw it. A warehouse, no markings, barbed wire perimeter, heat scanners, and men on towers with no patches. It looked abandoned. But Malik knew better, because just as they stepped closer, his earpiece crackled. Theo's voice. "They see you." Red dots lit up on Malik's chest. Then came the floodlights, the sirens, the doors slamming open. But before they could fire, boom. The perimeter went dark. Theo had hacked their system. Renee raised her weapon. Malik ran. They got inside, breached the lower levels, found files, maps, video feeds of other families, people who had vanished after making noise, after fighting displacement, after owning land that was too valuable to stay in black hands. And then they found her, Zari, alone, sitting on a cot with headphones on, eyes empty, drugged. Renee rushed to her. Malik ripped the IV from her arm. But Zari? She whispered something. Just one word. "Trap!" The room locked behind them. Gas filled the vents. Cameras flashed. Malik screamed, pounded the walls, looked up just in time to see a figure on the other side of the glass. Harold Kane, alive, smiling. He held up a tablet, pressed a button. The screen on the wall lit up. A video feed of Malik's mother, bound, crying, surrounded by the same men in black. And Kane, he spoke through the intercom. "You thought you ended this, Malik? But you only clipped the branch. I am the root." And then the screen cut to black. Last time we saw Malik, he walked into a trap. Not just him, Zari too. Gassed, locked in, surveillance room sealed tight. And across the glass, Harold Kane, smiling like he'd just won the long game. Like this was checkmate. He showed Malik a live video feed, his mama tied up, terrified, surrounded by masked men. Then he said it clear as day. "You thought you ended this, Malik. I am the system. You can't burn what's underground." Then the screen cut off. The gas kept hissing. Zari's eyes started to flutter. She wasn't breathing right. Malik panicked, beat on the door, called Theo on the radio. Nothing. Then a voice came through. But it wasn't Theo. It was her, Big Mama Ruth, alive, on the communications, whispering, "Baby, I need you to listen very carefully. You're not trapped. He is." Malik froze, thought he was hallucinating, but Ruth kept talking. "This was never about the cabin, never about land. They feared us because we remembered, because we survived. And you were never just a witness, you were the weapon." Turns out Ruth hadn't gone into protection like they claimed. She'd gone underground with Theo, and while Malik thought he was acting alone, he was being guided. The USB drive, a decoy, the live stream, a distraction, the warehouse location, a setup. Theo hadn't just hacked the perimeter earlier. He hacked the whole facility weeks ago, installed kill codes, surveillance loops, even triggered Kane's gas system early, to give Malik just enough time to survive. "Hold your breath," Ruth said. Malik grabbed Zari, found the vent panel, pried it off, crawled through the shaft with her limp body in his arms. The gas burned his eyes, but he pushed, harder than he ever had. Finally, daylight. He stumbled out of the facility's back end into the arms of Theo and Renee. Oxygen mask, epinephrine for Zari. She gasped, eyes open. She was okay. Malik collapsed, coughing, crying, but alive. And then Theo said the words that changed everything. "We've got him." See, while Kane watched from the control room, he was being watched. Every word, every threat, every command, streamed straight to a private server, sent to journalists, activists, lawmakers, live. This time, they held the lens. And Kane? He had nowhere to hide. Federal agents stormed the facility 20 minutes later. He tried to run. One of his men pulled a weapon. Renee dropped him in one shot. They found 16 families being held in that building. Sedated, forgotten, alive. And Kane was arrested on 23 federal charges. But the story doesn't end with handcuffs. Because just as Malik sat down to catch his breath, his phone lit up again. Blocked number, one text, a video. It was Zari's school principal, in a warehouse, surrounded by the same black-clad men, being handed a briefcase by a senator. In the background, a board, with photos of every person who spoke out against Kane. Names crossed out in red, except one, Malik Johnson. And under his photo, a date. 12.24, final extraction, Christmas Eve. He stared at it, pulse racing. Zari walked over, looked at the screen, then at him. She didn't cry. She just said, "We fight, right?" And Malik nodded, not because he was ready, but because the system just made one final mistake. They gave him time. The text message said one thing, 12.24, final extraction. That was it. No sender, no threats, no explanation, just a date, Christmas Eve. And under it, Malik Johnson's face, circled in red. Now ask yourself something, America. What happens when a man spends his whole life dodging bullets, only to find out the calendar is now his assassin? Because for Malik, the next 19 days weren't about joy, peace, or forgiveness. They were about preparing for war. Zari knew it too. She didn't speak much after they escaped the compound. Didn't ask about Kane. Didn't cry about the people they couldn't save. She just sat at Malik's kitchen table, drawing maps of schools, hospitals, government offices. She remembered more than she let on. Turns out she was listening the whole time, and what she heard could burn this country from the inside out. See, Kane wasn't working alone. That warehouse, one of 5, each holding not just families, but records, back doors, blackmail, and Malik, his name was on every single one. Not because he was a threat, but because he was the proof. Proof that the government didn't just lose people. It recycled them, changed their names, relocated them, gaslit them into silence. And now they needed him gone. For good. Theo confirmed it, pulled classified files from the dark web, said this wasn't just a corrupt program. It was a national operation, one built after September 11th, branded as urban stabilization. But the targets were always poor, always black, always inconvenient. They didn't need to kill Malik, they just had to make him disappear on a holiday, when no one's watching, when the news cycle's full of joy and distraction, when another missing black man becomes another unsolved tragedy. But this time, America? Malik saw it coming, so he planned ahead. Ruth called in favors. Renee contacted every journalist Kane had buried. Theo linked with global hacktivists, people who'd been waiting for something this big to explode. And Zari? She wrote one sentence, taped it to the fridge. Let's make Christmas loud. Here's how they did it. First, they leaked the other 4 facilities. Real-time drone feeds, medical files, audio recordings of whistleblowers from inside the Department of Homeland Security. At 10:02 a.m. on December 22nd, 5 major news networks broke the story simultaneously. It wasn't just a scandal, it was treason. At 4:47 p.m., a senator was arrested on live TV. By 9 p.m., 2 governors were implicated. America was watching now, but Malik wasn't done, because the text warned of a final extraction, and he knew they were still coming, not for justice, for revenge. So on December 24th, Malik sat on his porch, wearing his daddy's boots, Mama praying behind him, Zari by his side, holding a walkie. She looked him in the eye and whispered, "They're here." And they were. Black vans, government tags, men in tactical gear, moving quiet, like they'd done this before. But this time, They weren't the only ones in position. Cameras were rolling, live feed already streaming to 6 million viewers across YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Every journalist Renee called was stationed on rooftops, and Theo, he had hacked their body cams, broadcasting their own takedown live to the world. Malik stood up, said nothing, just opened his coat, revealed a microphone, and spoke one sentence into the lens. "You wanted a Christmas miracle, America? Watch what happens when the hunted stop hiding." He dropped the mic. The agents surrounded him, told him to get on his knees. Malik didn't move, and just as they raised their rifles, a floodlight hit them from behind. Dozens of neighbors stepped out with phones recording. Media vans pulled up. Federal agents froze. Zari grabbed Malik's hand and said the words that cracked every heart in America. "If you shoot him, you shoot us all." That night, no bullets were fired. No one disappeared. But the headlines the next morning? Black family foils final government extraction on Christmas Eve. Malik became a symbol, Zari, a movement, and the country shook to its bones because for the first time, they saw what it really meant to be black and dangerous in America. But here's the part nobody expected. 3 days later, Zari vanished. No note, no trace, no camera caught it. All she left behind was a sealed envelope. Inside, a map, with one sentence written in her handwriting, "I found where they keep the children." Zari was gone. No footprints, no camera trail, no signal, just that envelope. Inside, a map, marked with red lines leading through Appalachia, old coal routes, abandoned tunnels, places you won't find on Google. At the bottom, that single sentence, "I found where they keep the children." Malik didn't hesitate. He packed a bag, taped the letter to his chest, and drove through the night. Theo tried to stop him. Renee begged him to wait for backup, but Malik wasn't looking for backup. He was looking for blood. What he found was something else entirely. Day 3 of the search, deep in the Smoky Mountains, Malik found the tunnel. It wasn't guarded, wasn't even hidden, because the people who built it never imagined someone like Malik would come this far. Inside, the air was thick, not with gas, but fear. Flickering lights, old speakers playing soft classical music, and on the walls, paintings drawn by children, names scribbled in the corners. Ashley, age 9. Isaiah, age 6. Kamari, age 10. But the faces in the drawings? They were crying. Malik followed the sound of air vents until he found a heavy steel door, keypad, retina scanner, locked tight. Then, a noise behind him. Footsteps. He spun around, fist clenched. And there she was, Zari, alive, barely standing, blood on her sleeve. But her eyes? Fierce. "They took the babies, Uncle Malik, but they're still here. I found them. I know how to get in." Turns out Zari had let herself be taken, tracked their moves, memorized codes, even slipped a tracker in one of the guards' pockets. She led Malik to the power junction. They shut down the lights, triggered a lockdown override. And when that door opened, Malik didn't find a lab. He found a prison, glass rooms, children inside, dozens of them. Some couldn't speak, some didn't blink. And all of them were listed as missing in state records. Years gone, some since birth. Government said they ran away, but they never left. They were taken by the very agencies that were supposed to protect them. Malik and Zari got them out, every single one. They didn't run to the police, they ran to the world. Renee went live with the footage. Theo streamed the data dump. Parents came forward, DNA confirmed, lawsuits exploded, Congress tried to deny it. But the truth was louder than denial. These were not isolated cases. They were proof of a decades-long covert eradication and reconditioning program targeting vulnerable black families under the banner of domestic peacekeeping. The public was horrified. The government was cornered. And Harold Kane tried to cut a deal. But Ruth showed up at the hearing, sat in the front row, When the cameras turned to her, she just said, "This ain't about punishment. This is about memory, and we don't forget." Cain was sentenced to life. So were 3 senators, 2 governors, and 12 federal agents. The program was dismantled, the tunnels sealed. And Malik? He didn't become a hero. He became something scarier, a reminder that you can silence voices, erase records, disappear bodies, but you cannot bury truth when the people are watching. Zari? She started a foundation, the Remembered Ones, and every year, on Thanksgiving Eve, they release a name. One name of someone still missing. One name America doesn't get to forget. Moral of the story: when the system fails its people, the people must become the system. Because justice isn't given, it's taken. One voice, one body, one reckoning at a time. Have you or someone you know experienced injustice? Share your stories and let's support each other in the fight for justice. Comment below. The end.